Hello and welcome back to Sprite Guard Plays HyperRogue. We are getting into the end game, and we are looking for dead orbs, we are looking for orbs of Yendor, and we are looking for opportunities to go into some of the more challenging areas. We have a lot of areas that we need to get knocked out, and so one thing that we'll be looking for that I'm particularly eager to play around with is getting an Orb of the Dragon that is not too far away from the Red Rock Valley. And that's going to be a little bit of a longer term project because I'm not actually all that confident that we're going to be able to do this really easily. I think that probably what's going to end up happening is we need to go into the Caribbean and get an Orb of Time. And what that will do for us is it will let us preserve an Orb of the Dragon and carry it around with us for a little bit longer than we would be able to otherwise, until we get to the point where we can actually use the Orb of the Dragon effectively to kill a rock snake. Because it's going to take a very long time for us to actually find one that will spawn close enough to the Red Rock Valley to be really useful to us. And I don't really want to spend all of my time just going around the edge of the Red Rock Valley and not really moving the game forward at all. We still have a lot of areas that we need to tackle, including the Land of Power, which I want to actually save for a little bit later, because I want to be able to have a lot recorded and kind of... The Land of Power is one of the areas where the game is most likely to end. And so it's kind of one of the areas that I want to save for. At some point we will have enough footage saved up that I will not feel too bad about the game ending and us not being able to continue. And so I actually almost think that I would like to find an Orb of Yendor before we do that. But I'm not sure. There aren't a lot of opportunities to find the Orb of Yendor just yet, and I just realized I have my mouse in the wrong place, so I'm sorry if there was a whole bunch of clunking right in the beginning of the episode, but I will make sure to prevent that from now on. What I do is I put my mouse on a book so that it's not right on the same desk, because I have a very small little area where I have all of my computer stuff. I'm basically on top of a dresser, and so I have a little tiny area for my microphone and a little tiny area for my mouse, and they're both on the same surface. So I try to avoid that, and that's why I try to avoid using my keyboard as well, because that is on the same surface also. So what do we have? Couple orbs of safety, an orb of speed. We do have Camelot. I would like to get a Grail. I had an idea of how I wanted to go for a Grail. I actually want to basically save that for one of the last things we do. We can actually do it after a Hyperstone quest, because we will cross the table, and monsters cannot cross the table. Did I really actually manage to double back on myself? No. Okay, so this is just a Rock 3 that has spawned outside of the Red Rock Valley. I have seen that happen a couple of times before. I've even actually seen gems spawn on top of the Great Wall. So that's kind of one of the funnier quirks that I've seen with some of the ways that lands interact with each other. Now, we are kind of aimless right now, kind of not really working on anything in particular as I sort of scope out the situation. We do want to gather up dead orbs because that will make us much more able to get Orbs of Yendor. Once we have about 20 Orbs of Yendor, that will open up the Hive and the Mirrored Land for us. And then, now we have an Orb of the Dragon here, so I actually would like to look around and see if there is a Red Rock Valley anywhere nearby. I remember we had a rock snake chasing after us. Okay, now we have a greater demon after us, and that's going to be pretty problematic. So we may not want to mess around with that Orb of the Dragon in particular, just because it's going to be kind of a lot of extra work to... Well, let's see. If we take this Orb of Speed, and we use it to power past that greater demon, we have a Red Rock Valley just over there. And so we can... Let's see, how are we doing for speed? We only have 11 left. So we're going... Whoops! Well, that was kind of a waste of dragon power, but we should be able to... Okay, now we can get into the Red Rock Valley, and there is a rock snake, so let's give it a throw. And there it has died, and we can climb onto its back and see if there's anywhere we can get from there. And I want to... Ah, that was a mistake. I wanted to get that troll onto that rock so that nothing else could climb up, but I didn't leave myself a way to climb up, so that's something that I need to work out. We would need to find the snake's tail. And I'm not being very strategic about this. Probably what I should be doing is kind of luring the rock snakes over to mesas that I want to climb on. What we want to do is basically find our way onto a mesa, and then, let's see, this should work. There we go. Okay, so now we're actually fairly well protected, and we can fight off trolls that come up to us, and they will really have a hard time getting to us. And so we will have a lot of opportunities to, like, this rock snake will actually die now, and what we want to be really careful about is leaving any rock 2s next to a rock 1 like this, because that can be very dangerous, so we need to keep an eye on that. Because what I'm worried about is a rock snake getting on top of our mesa and chasing us around, because that will chase us off of the mesa. And basically what I was reading on the Steam forums was, I don't remember who was actually writing about this, but one of the really skilled members of the community was talking about wanting to stay on top of the mesas for as long as possible, and basically just try to use that as a way of preventing anything from getting to you. But the danger you run, the risk you run, is having a staircase like this that other creatures can get up. Now, rock snakes cannot get up this because the only rock 1 around here is Heptagon. So the only thing that can get up to us is trolls. And that means that we are in a pretty good position overall. This snake's tail is going to be problematic. Wait, but this can't be a snake because it goes right through some heptagons. That is... But they're rock 2s. I'm not sure... Well, we have this troll after us now. We can actually lure it onto there. So that's that taken care of. So how do we have rock 2s cutting through heptagons? That's not something I've ever seen before. But we have, we have stuff like this. This is a snake tail. Its tail is also going to be 1 stone high, and so stuff can get onto the mesa that way. So now that we've actually gotten all 10 gems from this area, I want to jump down and basically focus on making my way out of here as quickly as possible. I was hoping we could escape into hell, but we ended up having a rock snake between us and it, so that didn't pan out. So now I'm just going to be looking for the most open path ahead of us, and we can actually escape into the icy land. And that is going to be a fairly unpopulated area that we can cross relatively quickly. And so we can, just by moving across heptagons in a straight line, we can get a lot of distance on that rock snake, and eventually we'll get far enough away that it will stop updating. So now the thing to do is we may actually want to see if we can get into the Caribbean. I think we might. It's a little bit hard to say because the Caribbean is a very risky area to go into. And it's an area where we're really committed to it. It's like we can't get out very easily once we've gone in. And so we need to be incredibly careful. And we don't have any opportunities to save coming up anytime soon, because it's going to take us a very long time to get out of here. And so I'm really kind of committing this episode to being about the Caribbean if I continue to go into. And so I'm actually going to check the time, and we're doing fine. We're doing fine on time, so I'm thinking that I'm going to go for it. I think that being really hesitant about it could end up doing more harm than good. And we're already here. And we have a few treasures visible to us. We need to be careful about parrots, because the treasures are all nestled in under the trees like this. And so we have to really fight off a lot of parrots in order to be able to get to the treasures. And then we're going to have a lot of treasures like this that are not accessible at all. So I want to make sure we're going in the right direction, because you can't actually tell just by looking at a compass whether or not it is pointing in the direction that you're going. Because, like, look, these two do not look like they are going in at all the same direction, but they are, somehow. And it's one of the many wonderfully counterintuitive things about this game, is that it's so difficult, just so profoundly difficult to read compasses from even just a few steps away. And we don't actually need to continue going deeper and deeper. We can kind of go around at a certain depth and not overcommit, because that is one of the ways that we can get overwhelmed by pirates. And one option that we really want to kind of leave open is going to a different island. That can sometimes be the right choice, because one island can just kind of get really overrun, and you can kind of get very deep in. I think there's plenty of room already for us to find lots and lots of treasures. Sometimes you'll get to a point where you're just blocked off from going any deeper. But I think even by that point we're going to have so much area that's kind of within the treasure radius that we don't have to worry about that. But I want to leave that open as an idea of something that we are at the very least able to do. And let's see how deep in we are. We're actually only 6 steps in at this point. So yeah, Yeah, we can see the shore right there. So we're not going to find any treasures around here. So if we are going to find treasure, we kind of need to go in deeper. And this is kind of another one of those counterintuitive things that even just by wandering randomly around just a little bit, we have probably dramatically increased the likelihood of us finding new areas to explore. Just because this world is so large, and so kind of it's large in such a strange way that we're actually probably not someplace that we've been before, though it's very difficult to tell. And there's a treasure. We can actually grab this one, and we are getting there. We have 7. This is going to be our 8th. And then we can continue looking for... We only need 2 more. And once again, we're going to... We kind of have to play this a lot like the Mirrored Land, because it's very open like this, and because there are so many pirates coming after us. We really have to kind of be proactive about combat. Even though we don't have the eagles to worry about. We still have, we have a certain amount of risk just in getting swarmed by pirates, because there's just enough restriction that if we end up having to walk in a straight line for a really long time, the odds of us eventually having a pirate come from the direction that we're forced to walk in ends up becoming pretty high pretty quickly. And we can get pirates kind of to conga line up, but I'm not always the best at that, and I'm not really confident in my abilities to manage combat in that way just by getting pirates to line up. And I think that being proactive about combat is at least as effective and probably a lot safer. And we are actually at our last treasure here. So we now want to start finding our way out to the sea again. And that is going to... I believe the black side of the compass points the shortest line to the shore. I'm not entirely sure how that all works. And I'm not entirely sure that there is always a shortest line. But that's kind of the way that it seems. Now we're going to have to get out ahead of these pirates. And probably we can fight this guy off now. And we are just sailing for an exit. We probably are not going to be able to get to a crossroads before this Orb of Time runs out. But it's something that we can aim for. And we're actually kind of not in a great position. And I think the thing to do now is to flee into Relia, because Relia is someplace that we can reliably get through. Yeah, I kind of failed at the yucks there. That was a bit embarrassing, but we're going along fine. I actually have a really deep love of puns. Like, I really genuinely like puns a whole lot. I find them really interesting. I find them they tickle my fancy. I really dig them. That was a nice use of teleport right there. And we can use the Orb of Time to preserve some Orbs of Teleport, and Orb of Teleport actually ended up saving me on the big run, the really successful run that I was talking about in the previous part of this series. So having an Orb of Teleport just that you carry around is actually a really good idea, especially as you kind of get into the very late game. We only have 12 dead orbs, which is not enough. I've never gotten the orb out of Relia, And I think that you would run into, or the key, I mean, out of Relaya, I think you would run into some pretty tricky problems with tentacles. I think you would run into some of the same kinds of problems that you run into in the desert. And so I would not be really inclined to go after a key in Relaya. So we can continue to stockpile dead orbs. Let's see, Orb of Storms, Orb of Safety. And I think this has been overall a very successful episode. I think the last thing that I want to do is to take on a hive. See if we can find our way to a nest. And the strategy that I've been using in the hive lately is basically to find a nest and then just sort of circle around the outside of it. Just outside of the sort of the radius where the hyperbugs will aggro. And I think it's just slightly outside of where the nest is actually marked. So if we if I went another step forward here, I believe that would cause them to aggro. But I think we can walk around here relatively safely. And it's going to take us a very long time to circumnavigate here. And we'll pass... Fortunately, we're passing a lot of blue nests. But eventually we should find either a red or a green nest that is not too far away. So I just want to make my way around here and hope that the strategy that I've been using for taking on the hive will pay out relatively quickly. The thing is, it's not ever guaranteed to pay off. I don't think it's actually that significantly better than kind of aggroing them first and then moving just kind of in straight lines. So, you know, as we go through this, I kind of am going to be faced with the question, well, how much... Okay, so here we go. We have a green nest here that we can lead these blue hyperbugs to. That one had 46 in it. How many does this have in it? Looks like 46 to 46, so we won't have a lot of mopping up to do afterward. And let's see, that is an Orb of Safety. If we find our way back there, it may be good. That may be the Orb of Safety that we want. But I find that it's usually very difficult to find your way back to any particular point on the edge of the hive, on the edge of a nest. And that is everything that was chasing after us, so we'll just head out of here in roughly the direction that that crossroads was in, but as I suspected, I see no sign of it. It's the sort of thing, circles in this game are really deceptive. Just really phenomenally deceptive, but I do think I want to... I'm going to check the time. So it would be a little bit early wrapping it up here, but I feel like we've gotten a lot done. We've accomplished a whole bunch of stuff, and we have some pretty big challenges ahead of us that I kind of want to go into fairly fresh. Now that key is in the dry forest, which has kind of its own problems. I believe, and I'm not entirely confident in this, I believe if you avoid the dry forest, fire fairies will not spawn, and so it would be possible to use the strategy that I use just for finding the crossroads from the forest, where you just cut a really wide path that is really easy to follow backwards along. So our choices at this point are to try and finish off the, let's see, the hive, the dead cave, or the vineyard. Or to try and take on the Land of Power. The problem is, the Land of Power is a really big commitment. And it's not something that I'm really finding really appealing right now. And the hive is like, it's so uncertain when are we going to find something. So let's see. Orb of the Dragon, Orb of Thorns. let's grab those and head over to the vineyard and play around with fire in the vineyard. I think the fires last not very long. Yeah, they only last a few turns in the vineyard. And so we can actually create some opportunities that we would not otherwise have. And having this Orb of Thorns, I don't know how long we'll get to keep it, but having it gives us a little bit more opportunity to fight things in the vineyard, because we don't always have to fight things one at a time. 7 turns still. I guess the ones that I throw end up lasting a bit longer, because we can stab things, so that gives us the opportunity to kill monsters in some ways that we would not normally be able to do. I think I actually want to burn this whole vine as well. Oops, that was a mistake. And this should... that will actually make use of that bonfire to burn those vines over there. So, let's see, we need 4 more wine. And I saw some on the other side of this wall that we have burned. This is one of the most enjoyable strategies I have found for getting through the vineyard, and it leaves a really obvious path back to the crossroads as well. So that is definitely something that I want to keep in mind in the future. And it looks like we need 1 more wine than we have, but we got so much out of that excursion at very little risk. And I've discovered a new strategy that had not ever occurred to me. That's something that I notice happens a lot in this game, is I will pick up an item and I will see a land, and then I will suddenly realize that I can use that item in that land. And there's this kind of moment of glee when I realize that. And that worked out kind of better than I even anticipated. That was really enjoyable. That's an Orb of Thorns. Orb of Thorns is useful in the vineyard. It's a very good way of keeping your options open. It's useful in any situation where you can end up kind of crowded out, because it lets you kill something and move away from something at the same time. Normally you can't move when you kill something. And so being able to move and attack at the same time is very valuable. Now, I may have made a very big mistake by coming in here, because we have these 2 desert men coming after us. I now have to play very carefully. But, okay, so I've walled myself in, which is not good. But we don't have the desert men on our tail anymore. And we're kind of in a position where we have some options. We have some ways of exploring around. I don't see any vine spirits along this vine. So let's see. I want to kill this vine spirit in a way that will not prevent me from exploring. Looks like we can make it over to this wine, and I believe that will be the last one that we need. So if we can break through this vine right here, that would be ideal. And then we could just make our way back out to the crossroads. But I'm not seeing any spirits that are going to help us out. And so we may need to kind of give up on that crossroads and just try to keep moving forward. The danger, though, is that kind of the deeper we get into the vineyard, the more danger we get into. Because There's just, it's a very difficult area, it's a very tactically challenging area. And it's an area where we often don't have a lot of options. And so, having to kind of strike out and commit ourselves, especially this late in the episode, when I had kind of already been making noises that I wanted to wrap it up, having this this kind of spiral out of control on me is not what I wanted. Let's see if we can get this someplace that we can... Yeah, that was not too bad. So we can open up some options for ourselves. Just really keep things open so that if an exit comes along, we can make our way to it. And we may even be able to kind of do a Theseus thread all the way back to the area where we started, but at this point I don't have a lot of confidence in my own ability to do that. And I don't have any confidence that we'll actually make any real significant progress, but it's something we can give it a shot. And I may actually have closed up one of these behind myself at some point. So I don't know if there's any gain from this. And it doesn't seem like there is. That was probably not the best way to do that. Kind of blocked off my ability to progress that way. So we're in a pretty sticky situation. We don't have anything on our horizon that looks like a really promising exit. We really want to find our way back to the crossroads so that we can get an orb of safety, so that we can wrap the episode up. But things are really spiraling out of control, and I'm kind of at the point where any exit is appealing right now. Mirrored Land is probably one of the worst places we could escape to, and it looks like we're not even going to be able to escape into it. That's disappointing. Jungle, again, one of the worst places we could escape to. But we can keep our options open. And Alchemy Lab. So now we're actually getting a lot of exits at least presented to us. Icy Land is actually probably one of the best places we could go, but it doesn't look like we can actually get there. Let's see, if we loop around the end of this vine, we're going to have to pick up one too many of those wines, which is not a disaster. There we go, we can exit into the Icy Land. And so this will just give us a place that we can cross much more safely. Now I'm kind of curious, I kind of want to stand around here a little bit. So, vines, it looks like just kind of are not very cold. The troll corpses are like this really intense cold sink. So I actually, in the really successful run I had, I actually ran into a place where I could not melt through a wall because there was a troll corpse several spaces away. Now one thing we can do is we can actually go through the Cocytus and pick up the sapphires that we need. Because that's something that we will need to pick up eventually. And we're kind of in this holding pattern until we find our way back to a crossroads. And so, you know, wandering around in the middle of nowhere productively is better than wandering around in the middle of nowhere unproductively. But I have just seen this Land of Eternal Motion, and I have just seen this crossroads. And so my first thought was to go into the Land of Eternal Motion to find an orb of safety, but now we're actually in the crossroads, should be able to find our way to an orb of safety. in not too much time. I believe this is one here, yes. Alright, so I'm going to wrap it up there. That was a very exciting and productive episode. I'm really pleased with it. I hope you are too. And I hope that you will join me in the next episode as we try and get the last of our silver, jelly, sapphires. Try and wrap up everything that we have unfinished. And then go for an Orb of Yendor and some Hyperstones. So that is coming up in the future. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.